said an error occurred on Facebook and to wait a few minutes. Okay.
You're live and direct. You're live and direct, Rick.
Hi, it's Rex Sikes, and welcome to All Things Rex. This is episode number 4, and I'm so glad that you're here. Today, I have an exciting guest I'm going to tell you about in just a moment, but I want to say, again, welcome. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. I hope you'll like the show and that you've also gone back and watched my other 3 episodes. Fabulous episodes. You can catch them on the LA Tribune Facebook page. You can catch it on Los Angeles Tribune's YouTube channel. You can catch it on Roku TV, and I hope you go back and watch the replays. All the shows stream live and then are recorded, obviously, and made available later, so you can share them with your family, your friends, and even strangers. And so it's very cool that you're here. I'm here with my dogs, so if they bark, you'll know. And I'm going to bring on this very, very wonderful and impressive woman. She is Dame Doria Cordova, and she is the recipient of the Los Angeles Tribune Lifetime Achievement Award. So this is Doria. You can see her there in that shot. And I'm bringing Doria on right now. So here comes Doria. There we go. Hi, Doria. How are you?
I am good. I'm so excited to be with you. I find you to be so fascinating, and you're reminding me of all these things that I used to listen to and study many years ago, and then they kind of became part of my life. And now that you're reminding me of certain distinctions, I'm so excited to be in your life and in your show.
And right back at you. I am absolutely thrilled. For the audience who doesn't know, Doria and I have shared similar paths, but never met until this past year. And it's amazing. We share many, many friends in common and many experiences, and we have led parallel lives. I consider her my twin sister, and I am her twin brother, fraternal, of course, because she got all the looks. And but you are an amazing person, Doria. You have spent your lifetime, I know, after a career in court reporting and in the legal system, but you have spent your life in personal development and in helping people transform their lives, as well as transform and heal their pocketbook and create wealth. So would you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? By the way, she's a dame. This means she's been knighted for her philanthropic work. And so just an amazing woman, an amazing person, my friend, Doria Cordova.
Well, thank you so much. I'll give you a very short version. I grew up in Chile, and my family brought me to Los Angeles when I was 12 years old. I grew up a typical California girl, going to the beach in the summer and not quite ready to be a surfer. Not too many girls were surfers then, but had surfer boyfriends as a teenager. And I grew up pretty happy. And then when I was 18 years old, I had a tragedy. In those days, we used to get married at 18. Then I was engaged, and my beloved was killed a month before we were supposed to be married. And I didn't know that I was pregnant. I was very, very young and a little bit naive. And I lost a baby the day of his birthday, 4 months later. And it was just such a traumatic experience. So I literally shut down emotionally for 8 years and just became a very, very heavy duty workaholic and a student. And by the time I was 24, I was very, very successful. By that time, I had already found my career as a court reporter. And through a series of circumstances that were very bizarre, and that would take 2 shows to go over, I ended up moving to Hawaii. And when I was 26 years old, I had an enlightenment experience. And I actually felt that I had been put on planet Earth to do something much greater than to be a party girl. And I literally began to look, what did that mean that I had this job and not be a party girl? And again, through a series of miracles, and I believe in miracles, I ended up in a room as a co-reporter with a whole lot of people that were the top leadership of the EST training, EST. And that was one of the first big potential movement programs on the planet. There were 5 of them, but EST happened to be the most well-known. They were the best enrollers. I was writing a check in 5 minutes. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I found myself in the EST training. And it was in the EST training that I had a completion to my enlightenment experience, or my heartbreak when I was 18 years old, which is that I realized that I had no control over anything, nothing in the world except my consciousness. And I committed at a very young age, right before I was 27, to commit my life to knowing myself, to mastering my own consciousness, self-mastery. I didn't know those words then, but that's what it was. A year later, not even a year later, a few months later, I met Buckminster Fuller, and that we can talk about that a little bit more. And then within a year, I met the people that literally created the experiential, transformational, entrepreneurial training industry in 1978 with the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind. And I ended up been doing that work ever since. That's been 43 years. So that's a little bit of my background.
That is absolutely amazing. And, you know, I've always said that exploration is the doorway to adventure, and awareness is the key. And for you to become aware at such a young age after having experienced, you know, obviously tragedy in your life, but to transform yourself and to recognize that within you resides this resourcefulness and these powers and these abilities. And I believe in miracles right there with you. So that's really, you know, an incredible journey. And since then, and since your time with Buckminster Fuller and with the this transformational program, could you tell us a little bit about it? It's called Money and You, and what you do.
Actually, Marshall Thurber and Bobby D. Porter had a very successful real estate company in San Francisco. And they were also EST graduates, and they were applying the principles of EST to business. That is an amazing story, because Marshall went to Werner Erhard, the creator of EST, and said, hey, we should be using this, applying this in business. And Werner says, no, I'm just going to focus on the persons right now. You go do it in business. And Marshall and his partners, and later Bobby D. Porter, put into this real estate company, and they became so successful that everybody wanted to go work there. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people. And so Marshall had always had a dream, because he always hated, not disliked, hated traditional school systems, because he is truly a genius. And what he had found, he had this uncanny ability to kind of understand how the brain worked, and he's just genius. And what happened was that he could see that you know, in school people were suffering so much, and of course he was a straight A student, and then when he got into Boston College and later into law school, he just paid people, you know, to take notes for him. He would just kind of take him in, and to this day he's one of the smartest people that ever walked through Boston College, one of America's most prestigious colleges. And so what he always dreamed was to literally create a new educational system. So when he had this very successful business, he was very rich, he decided to create the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind. And he did research for quite a few years, found out that the top traditional business schools, which were all in America, the most successful ones in those days, now there's more overseas, but he found out that they taught zero about entrepreneurship, and decided to create a business school that would teach things that an entrepreneur needed to know. You know, things like, you know, dealing with customers, negotiations, accounting, easy accounting, and just things that, and a lot about self-development. And I was blessed, and I went to that first business school, So we started off with a business school. And I, again, had a baby vision, not as big as the other one, that this work had been created for me. And I moved from Hawaii, where I was still living, to San Francisco to become a volunteer. And then later I became a promoter, and then I became a partner. But Money and You, the Money and You program was the leftovers of games that had not been played in my business school, which had lasted 6 weeks. And people wanted a shorter program. So Marshall decided, and Bobby decided to create a thing called Money and You. In those days, it was 5 days. And so all of the Money and You work is based on the teachings of 4 masters they developed through the years. And the core one was Buckminster Fuller. So you see, behind me here, you see Buckminster Fuller's the Maxium map. You see beautiful drawings that were done by Money and You graduates. And Buckminster Fuller was the man that brought to the world that there was sufficiency already. And it was actually proven, not by him, but by governments. By the early 1970s, there was enough on the planet to feed people, to house people, to have clean water, to have electricity. But because of the absolute mindset of scarcity and the belief in the old Malthusian theory of economics, that it is the management of scarce resources, that people still to this day believe that there is a finite, a limited amount of resources, which is absolutely incredibly incorrect. So Buckminster Fuller was teaching us that in 1977. I had an opportunity to be around him for 6 years. July 1st, 1983 was when he passed away. And it was Buckminster Fuller's now influence on how to, bring about sufficiency on the planet, and then also sound business principles, then human principles. That's what all of my programs are all about. And I learned so well. My mentors went on to do other things. Bobby DePorter to do supercamp.com. You all must go and check that out. And it was out of that the work continues. And we are considered one of the top transformational, experiential entrepreneurial trainings on the planet because of the graduates, and also because people love it so much. And I'm a graduate of the business school and Money and You. So, if you learn the principles well enough, you will succeed. You are on mute. I believe you're on mute. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. They muted me, but here are 2 of your books. Now I understand you're reading this one, Money and You, but these are 2 absolutely incredible books of yours: the Money and You Accelerated Business Success Model and Wealth is Having Access to Cash, Resource Networks, Investments, Experts, Knowledge, Wisdom, and Support by Doria Cordova. So these are excellent books. And so what we will do is in the second half of the show is we'll open it up to some questions from the audience, so those in the chat room if they have questions. But I wanted to ask you, and this has just been fascinating, some of those feeds go by really quickly and some linger far too long. Anyway, what I would like to ask you is, we talked about the fact that a lot of people struggle with money and they don't have enough money at the end of the month and they don't quite know what to do. And you've been teaching, entrepreneurship and wealth creation for so long. Can you address the mindset or what some of these issues are and how they might be corrected while we're here on the air?
Absolutely. And so somebody just actually said something, that education systems have changed. No, they haven't. They have not. You really guys need to get this. I mean, yes, there are some wonderful schools. No, don't misunderstand that. And there are certain cities that have wonderful schools. And the reason why my old business partner, Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad, who was, he trained for us. He was a leading instructor of our Money and You program, the business school. We created a program called Creating Wealth. which is going to answer your question here in a minute, Rex. The reason why the first Rich Dad Poor Dad book was such a hit worldwide was because it was based on Money and You, and it was based on the teachings of Buckminster Fuller, that our traditional schools, our schools do not teach us to handle the world, to handle business, to handle money. Financial literacy should be taught from kindergarten. This is what actually Buckminster Fuller taught us from way back. This is aside from the beautiful other books that we all love, Think and Grow Rich and the Dale Carnegie books and all that. But I have to tell you that the reason why we have such a bad state of affairs on the planet and so much poverty is because there's two things. Well, there's more than two things, but let me handle two of the core things. And one of them is not having the right kind of education and being taught to be employees. Or if you notice, Buckminster Fuller used to tell us, why do they have business school be separate than other universities? Why are business schools separate? Everyone is in business. That was actually a question posed by Buckminster Fuller. So what you have to understand is that we are trained, and I'm going to put myself in there because I had to untrain myself. We are trained to being poor. I want you to really get this, and please forgive me for saying this, because those of you that were privileged, that went to the best schools, or I was privileged because education was literally free back in the 70s. I could go and educate. I am a product of, I'm an immigrant that has lived the American dream. But part of that is because I had free education, but I also had accessibility to people that helped me with school. So I didn't end up with huge student loans. So I ended up coming out into the professional world pretty much cash fluid. So what happens is that we also have multi-generational beliefs that are literally passed down from our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents, the first bosses we had, the teachers, the churches, our religious organizations or non-religious organization. So you can actually feel the energy. I can totally, if I may say this, smell a trust fund baby. They just have a different energy. They're like feel entitled, like, the world belongs to me. It's like they grew up like that. And it isn't that they are smarter, because people used to have that thought that rich people were smarter. That's why they were rich. Actually, that's totally inaccurate. Many of us know that by now. But one of the things is that you have to understand is that we need to undo and it just clear. I have so many thoughts coming up, I can hardly talk. And let me take a deep breath. I get so passionate about this, and this is, I think, why I've been so successful in being an activist and a big speaker for this, with even Fidel Castro and presidents and heads of countries, because I get this excited with them, because there's now one educational system on the planet that works for everyone, okay? Only for the privileged still. So now what happens is that we really need to have the ability to be able to clear ourselves. So I have two gifts. You show one of them, which was the Business Success Model book. And the other one is actually magical exercises. So if people go to, that one is for free. So if people go to moneyandyou.com, they would download that. It's a soft copy. So I'm giving that away. And it's called the Business Success Model, which is what the Money and You is really based on for 3.5 days. And then if you go to fridayswithdoria.com and look under resources, you will see the recovery magical exercises, which I actually did. And you may have to mute me here for a minute. I'm going to call up my neighbors here. Hold on just a second. Can you mute me?
I hope you're really enjoying this. This is fabulous. And apparently her neighbor is doing some pounding. And so we'll take a quick break. But if you have questions for Doria, be sure to put them in the chat room. And we'll ask those as time permits. and I'm so glad that you're here. Remember, we actually stream live every Thursday, and it's recorded. But we stream live Thursday every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Central time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, and around the world you'll have to convert that on your own. But we stream live, and we are on Facebook Live. We're on YouTube, the Los Angeles Facebook program. I'm sorry, we're on the Los Angeles Tribune Facebook page. We're on the YouTube, Los Angeles Tribune YouTube page. We're on Periscope, Twitch, and the replays are always available on Roku TV. I'm going to check back in with Doria here and see if we're good.
So I must be talking about something really important because the banging may continue. They're not answering the phone. So this is live, right? We're doing a live program, and there's banging from my neighbors that he never does that, but today we do. That's what I call divine interference, when we're really like making a difference. But anyway, just to come back, so the recovery magical exercises will really support you in clearing those multi-generational thoughts and beliefs that you may have that actually you're carrying. So that is one of the core things. And a lot of the big names and graduates of our programs, like Tony Robbins, I know he did that because I had him do them. I had him do it. Kiyosaki of Rich Dad, for sure. And Jack Canfield, that is a great friend of mine. He has done a different version of it, but definitely. So when you look at a lot of the people that are transformational leaders or are talking about money and wealth, a lot of them, Harv Eker, who was around us for 7 years, they've all done those clearings. And this is what I want the world to really, they need to understand that there are tools available that you're teaching, I'm teaching, that are absolutely essential for us to clear ourselves in order for us to create wealth and to be able to uplift all of humanity's consciousness, financial literacy, and our consciousness so that we can actually solve big world problems.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and something that should not be lost on people is a lot of the people that Doria has named who are present today and others who are present today weren't around 20, 30 years ago doing what they're doing, and so the message continues to get moved forward, for each new generation, and so I certainly appreciate that. Doria, what I wanted to ask you is this: assuming that I have some money issues or some money blocks, or I just don't have enough money at the end of the month to pay my bills, what is it that I could do today to try and get my mind clear or my being clear so that I could
go ahead.
Well, so that I could start generating some income or some wealth or change my circumstances? Is that
okay? So
something that or something I should be aware of right now, or listeners?
Oh, totally. So whenever I go into any kind of a business, or I'm working with someone who wants to, get out of not having money or constantly being quote unquote broke, which I call it being temporarily out of cash. There's no such thing as a BROKE person, unless they broke a leg, they broke their arm, or broke a back. Okay. So be very careful with your languaging. So people are temporarily out of cash, particularly in countries, economically developed countries. So if you need cash immediately, you need to first stop spending money on things that you don't need, on what our mentor, Keith Cunningham, called duda. Kiyosaki started using that word, and the man who created the cash flow quadrant, Keith Cunningham from Texas, he called it duda. It's an old Texan name. So stop with the duda. The next thing is look around and see what you can actually sell, that you can exchange. There is a lot of things that you can do. It's not just having a garage sale or going to a swap meet, but there's actually things that you can do and that you can immediately generate cash. The next thing is you need to really start figuring it out. How much time are you spending in income generating activities a day? So most people that don't have enough money is because they're putzing around. I love that word, to putz around. So it looks like you're really busy and you're moving papers around and you're making all these calls. You're watching all these, YouTube videos, and you may be getting educated. Fantastic. But when you need money, you need to spend at least 8 hours a day creating income and being involved in income generating activities. If you do that and not create income, you are in really big trouble. Okay? Because that means that you're so unconscious and unaware of your behavior, and you're kind of maybe twisting things around on what income generating is. Income generating means that you are making money. The next thing that every human being should be doing is also doing what we call future money, which is setting up for leverage. So what the other book that you held up is called, these are the Money and You series, those little books that you're holding up. And the Money and You series, that the green book is called Access to Cash. So it's my new definition of wealth, because you are really much wealthier and richer than you think you are because of accessibility. So for all those of you that have never met me before and have never heard me before, what you need to understand is that right now you're much wealthier than you were 45 minutes ago, or however long we met before, or 2 weeks ago, a year ago, because now we have met. You having access to me, who has tremendous accessibility, actually makes you accessible to that, because you can follow me in a good way. You can see all the different educational programs. People say, oh, you have so many in your Facebook. Every other day you have something listed. Yes, well, that's not for you, my rich friend. That is for the masses that can't afford to have free education. So I have many people that come to me after following me for years and apply all the things that I teach in all these different podcasts, all these different shows that I do, and they begin to put them to work, and they begin to uplift their consciousness and their ability to create, and their consciousness in understanding that leverage. If you don't understand leverage, you're going to work too hard and you're never going to create the level of wealth that you want, or you'll never be able to leave the position that you're in because you will be imprisoned by it. So what you have to understand is that it's a combination of consciousness, and it's a combination of action, and it's a combination of getting educated and understanding that the new definition of wealth is access to cash, to investments, to experts, to masters, to support, to networks, and how we all met, right? And thank you, Mo, the CEO, the head of the LA Tribune, where this beautiful show is being held through that platform, because Mo was the one that invited me to the One Percenters Room only, which is my new family. And there you and I met, and Dr. Laura, that's going to be on my Fridays with Doria, we met there. So all of a sudden I became much wealthier by just meeting you, and of course, Jay and Lena and Scott Harris and the Rhino and many other people. So what you have to understand is, when you shift what is really truly wealth, what is truly really money, that's when you begin to really have an understanding of what money really is.
I think that I don't want it to be lost on people. What you said is truly important. You said now you have access to me in whatever way that I'm accessible, and the people don't understand the power of the network in terms of your connections and the accessibility that you have for opportunity and for resources or for referrals or for whatever. So when people are feeling, temporarily out of cash, they all they need to do is start looking at who they are connected to. And if they're connected to people like yourself, it's a good thing. The idea of, your 5 closest people being people of great value or worth, or who have a higher income than you, a rising tide floats the entire boat and everyone in it. But I think that that's something that a lot of people miss out on. They don't realize that they have access to cash or cash opportunity that they have never ever considered until you said that. And the other thing is would you explain to everyone what you mean by leveraging?
Thank you. So leverage comes from lever, right? That's the word lever. So you use lighter weight, but you use it in a way so it is positioned in a way that you can do much more than if you were trying to lift it by yourself. So leverage is in America is your ability to be able to buy a home for only 10%. By the way, that is very rare in the world. Not too many people around the world get to just put 10% down and own a home. That is something that is such an American privilege. Most people that are foreigners, when they come into this country, that's immediately they figure out how to get that 10% down and whatever they need to get their home. This is why you have so many immigrants that are so successful, because we have systems in place in the United States that so many people take for granted that are not available in other countries. So having your ability to be able to only put 10% down for a house, that's a form of leverage. So the word leverage is also, quoting back Mr. Fuller, is doing more with less. And the word leverage is also the ability for you to be able to utilize, other people's networks or your own network, and the little money that you have, figure out how to do things with, if you have just a little bit of money, for you to be able to grow that money, for you to be able to expand the money that you have by cutting down on not having duda. And what really shocks me, so many people that are temporarily out of cash, buy $4 coffee in places that is the worst coffee on the planet. Some of the biggest coffee houses, chains, have the worst coffee. And I'm like sitting there going, how does that work? How does that work? People cannot buy instant coffee that's even better than this stuff and do it at home and get one of those cups that I've been carrying since 1980 and has saved about 40,000 cups since 1980. I actually multiplied it one day. It was at about 36,000. And then all this way that people just waste money and argue. Look, don't believe what's been trained in your brain. You are not your brain. I want you to know that. This is what I got from the ESH training. You are not your brain. There's you, your consciousness, this beautiful spirit, the little voice in the back, the one that's saying, what is she saying? That may be you, right? But not that brain. So this is where Rex, I am a little bit of a stalker of Rex, because what he mastered and teaches is how to rewire. Now, I do that too through games, but let's put it this way. I am a general doctor and Rex is a specialist. I get people started and he's the specialist. We send people to Rex, even after they've done all of our programs, because he's the specialist. He really knows how to rewire, right? So what some of you have, and you're not aware until this moment, remember, transformation only takes only a second. When you become aware that your little brain may be full of crap, thoughts that you need to let go because the results that you are creating are not what you want, then that's when you begin to really open up and stop saying, I know. Stop saying, I know. Most people that are not systematized, that cannot leave their business even for 2 weeks or a month and have systems going, they do not understand leverage. They don't understand leverage. So the minute that you say, oh my God, I think I don't understand leverage, then there is an opening. And now when I and others speak of leverage, you will go, oh, let me hear more. That is your new language. Let me hear more. Now, I already know leverage. She's talking, is she talking about that business success model again? Oh my God, I know all of that. I've heard it. I'm a Money and You graduate and I've been listening to her for 40 years. Why don't I have what I really want? Oh, maybe I should apply it. Now, so in my program, we have quite a few people that go out and apply it. And then there's still a few, and I'm talking to you, you know who you are, that are not. And so if you learn all these things, you need to then apply it. You need to apply it. And that is what leverage really is. When you leverage education, you leverage networks and people, whatever little money you have and the knowledge that you have.
Wow, that is so incredible. And let me say thank you. I'm humbled, and that we send all of the people to you so that they can develop the financial literacy and heal their relationship with money so that they can increase their net worth more readily and easily. So that's very cool. You do have a program coming up, a Money and You program coming up, correct? And
yes.
So let's talk about that for a moment, and then also about Fridays with Doria, because those are two opportunities that people who instead of saying, "Oh, I know that," go, "Let me learn more," can be at and tune in and connect with you. So, please.
Well, let me just say the gift of Fridays with Doria. Every Friday we have either at tomorrow, and for those of you that may be watching the replay, this is on June 25. We are going to have it live. We're going to have it live at 5 p.m. on Zoom with beautiful Dr. Lara, whom I met at the One Percenters. And she is an expert. I mean, oh my God, her background is so amazing. And she's one of the most entertaining people. So we're going to be talking about sexuality, health, and you. And it's a combination of all of it. And then every other Friday, and so the following Friday on July 2 at 9 a.m., we are on Clubhouse, and that's to expand to our family in Europe. So I have a global network, so I have to work with different hours. And that is a gift that I give to the world. And why you want to be there, and you want to be there live, is because of the context that you have. And the thing you need to know is that many of my people that come to Fridays with Doria are extremely successful. And you would never know it because they don't act like it. They don't show off. And quite a few of them are actually there looking at people and looking at, oh, I wonder what kind of business they have. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm not going to say so-and-so, so-and-so. You know, you need to start figuring out and connecting in networks like the One Percenters Only, you know, and the LA Tribune network, and the people that you work with, Rex Sikes, and the people that I work with, that we have very successful, you know, networks and successful ohanas, as we call them in Hawaii. So that is always good to have. That's leverage. That's creating more wealth. Then I have a Money and You program coming up in San Diego. It's from Wednesday through Saturday, 3.5 days. It's on the 25th. It starts around 6 p.m. in the evening. And that's our first live program in almost 2 years. We're so excited. And we are going to spend that time here in San Diego at the Marina Village. And it's half filled already because I have a limit of only 50 people, because venues are so hard to find right now because everybody's getting married. It was so funny because our usual venue has been sold after 15 years. So now I had to look for a venue. So I was lucky, but they have a limit. So I can only have 50 participants, plus I have staff and other people there. So I'm more than half filled. And that program is a program so people go to moneyandyou.com. And then, of course, I always have very special offers for people who are, you know, a part of our network. So you can just go to info@moneyandyou and ask about that. So just definitely, if you're ready, and for those of you that you can show me that you are in the process, but you got hit really bad by COVID, your businesses are really like suffering and all this and that, I do have time payments to our networks. I usually don't say this out in the public, but we are family here. And so I have some people that are coming on time payments. And, you know, I've been doing that for years. And you know that I don't have trouble with people paying me. Sometimes they'll call me up and say, I cannot pay you for another year. And I go, don't worry, it's money in the bank. It's savings for me. See, and this is what you can do when you're really successful. You can be generous but you have to understand exchange. People say, well, why don't you just give away money in you? No, because people need to understand exchange. You need to understand that when you're receiving something of so much value, that you are willing, you're saying to the universe, I'm willing to pay for that. And then it all kind of expands and your frequency gets higher.
That's a great point. And people don't go to the supermarket and go, just give me the groceries for free. You pay in exchange. You pay at a restaurant. Very seldom. You don't go to a movie theater and go, just let me in because it's free. There is an exchange. And I think also the value, we all talk about when we purchase something with our own money that we've earned, that we treat it a lot more respectfully than if, somebody just gives it to us. And so I think there's an entire mindset around, wanting. Napoleon Hill used to said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There is no free ride with the universe. The universe always expects you to go first and to put forth something, and then the universe will generously compensate you for that. And so, you exemplify those principles. Also, I would like to say, the mindset, the idea of being very careful about how you discuss your financial situations is very critical, because people don't realize that they continue to perpetuate old conditioning by what they say out of their mouth. And I have a saying that I've used for many years, and it's simply, speak always to bless, heal, prosper, inspire, motivate, and transform. I've added uplift to that because it's important to uplift other people. But the idea being, when we are always affirming things, whether it's positive or negative. And so if someone says they're BROKE, that's an affirmation that you just really don't want to be affirming. To say I'm temporarily out of cash implies that, I'm going to have cash at one point because it's only temporary.
It is the truth. It is the truth. That is, you're temporarily out of cash. You are not going to be out of it. Most people who are homeless, they have gone into some very bad situations. And this is why we support organizations that will help them. Some of them are actually mentally ill. Some of them are actually people that were like my friends that went to Vietnam and never came back right. And some of them are other military that also didn't come back right from Afghanistan and other places that we've been involved in. So you have to understand that the percentage of people that are homeless compared to what, that aren't, is something that you have to also be able to confront. And those are the exercises that I have actually done. I was so terrified of being a cart lady back in when I was doing clearing still around money. I already had money in you. And the more that I had success, the more that I got fearful. And then one day I got so in touch how fearful I was about being homeless. I decided to be homeless for a night and to have completely the experience. I was still drinking alcohol at the time. So I got myself pretty high because I knew it wasn't going to be nice. And I didn't wash that day, which for me, that was like unbelievable. I love to take 2 showers a day and more. And then I dressed up. I didn't do my nails because I've always had very manicure nails. I purposely prepared for that. And then I went, and in the area in San Diego, in downtown LA, they didn't have the big shopping center. I'll think of the name here in a minute. It's very big now near the gas lamp area. The gas lamp area didn't exist. Downtown San Diego was like a ghetto. And there was a park. That park is still there. I always show my friends, I go, that's why I was homeless for a night. And I took my Mercedes and parked it about 3 blocks away, got myself really grubby, spilled some wine on me, took a bottle of wine. I think I took, in those days, we still had phones that you paid a dime or a quarter for. I had a little bit of change just in case it got really bad. And I was really terrified because I knew what happens to women, a lot of homeless women. But I decided to spend a night, and I went into this park. Literally, I think I took maybe like a little blanket or something. I mean, I just pretended to be homeless. It was one of the scariest nights. I literally slept under a tree. I found myself some other women and confronted the biggest fear that I had. And it was very, very emotional for me. I share my bottle of wine with other women. I didn't go around too many men. I was terrified. I was beautiful. I was 30 years old. And ever since, I mean, I'll never forget coming home and showering. Ever since then, I am able to talk. I talk to homeless. I look at them. I walk up to them. I'm always having extra food. I'm always at fast foods and see people nearby and talk to them. And this is like, if you cannot talk to homeless, that's probably you're terrified of that. So you have to confront your fears. And the more that you do and transform them, the more that you will be able to allow yourself to becoming wealthy and to accept those and to support those that are not as blessed as you.
Wow, that truly is powerful, and I heartily agree. If you can't, you must, and you can find a safe way to do it as well. But yes. I know that a lot of people fear bankruptcy, and yet those people who've been bankrupt oftentimes come out and go, there was really nothing to fear, and they come out through the other side understanding that they didn't, even though they seem to have, they're threatened that they're going to lose everything, they didn't lose everything, and they still could survive. Many people who are bankrupt, still have homes and jobs and everything. So, but mentally we have this idea that, is far worse than it is. And when you can get through your fear, and come out the other side, then all sorts of things open up. But that goes back to you saying, tell me more. I'm interested. I'm curious. I want to know, as opposed to going, I know. And a lot of people stop with, I know that, with their fear. The brain that they don't own, that's in their rental vehicle, that there's you, and then there's the car body that you drive, has these thoughts, and then people tend to identify with those thoughts in the same way they identify with the rental vehicle, and then they live out of that limitation, as opposed to saying, what, I can do everything. Napoleon Hill said some really interesting things too, in that he pointed out that a lot of people do everything they can to make money, and then once they get money and they have money, then they do everything to hold on to the money because they're afraid of losing the money, and because they're afraid of losing the money, they ultimately end up losing it. They're kind of like they go through these programs of, I'm not worthy of this, or whatever they might have, and instead of doing the things that got them wealthy and continuing that, they now go into oh my God, I'm going to lose everything. Or they get all these things, their homes and their cars and their watches and their clothes and all the things that, and they're still not happy because they've never transformed themselves, but they got a lot of groovy stuff. And now they're going, but this stuff doesn't really make me happy. And so they need to learn, how to transform their being so that they are a person who understands that they deserve wealth, they can have wealth, they're entitled to it, they're entitled to have it and spend it and to contribute and to heal the world. We do have a question that came through, and I'd like to ask the question. Actually, apparently the same person has asked more than one question. Let me see if I can scroll back. It's Sharon first asked a question saying, going back to leverage, asked, will leverage work for everyone? When folks in power use leverage, they're seen as clever, but when marginalized folks use leverage, they may be seen as being manipulative. Would you address that? And you might also want to address the word manipulative.
By whom? Who is saying that they're manipulative? Their friends, their neighbors, their relatives. You have to be very careful who you hang around with. I mean, I have to tell you that I have relatives that absolutely, I have best friends that absolutely do not get who I am, from way back, like 1,000 years ago, that absolutely do not get who I am, what I'm about. And they say things like, oh, you're a little bit too big for your britches and stuff, just because I said something like I have to go and film something. So it's like, and I'm okay with that because I only see them like once a year. But you have to be careful who says that, because this is really important. You need to surround yourself for a little while with people that are going to be empowering and support you, because you're working yourself out of a sea. The sea, SEA, a sea of scarcity. You need to know this. It's almost like you were talking, I think, about this, Rex, and you were talking about, what do you call it? one of those things that pulls you down. And you said that if you just relax, then you will float on it, right? A quicksand, right? So you're like in a quicksand of scarcity. So what you want to do is you want to have first you need to get that. Look, if you're going to handle your life, you need to be very serious about how you are going to, where you are and what you need to do. So leverage is actually something that you need to have good intent, because you need to understand that I know a lot about the background of many of the very famous, and some of the people teaching about money and teaching about finances and all this and that. Some of those people are actually morally bankrupt. Maybe they have been bankrupt or not, I don't know. But I have to tell you, morally, they're bankrupt. So what you have to do is we're constantly dealing with our own consciousness, with our own vision of ourselves. And self-respect and self-trust is very important for you to recover. So then when people say something maybe negative, that's manipulative or whatever, then you need to go ahead and see who's saying it, or whether you have a judgment of that yourself, so that then when people go ahead and say something like that about you, that it doesn't click, it doesn't connect. So very quickly, I had an incident. I was at a very famous event. It's one of my favorite events with some of the biggest billionaires who are into environmental issues. It's called Our Day, AREDAY.net. It's my favorite environment. It is so beautiful. And there was a woman there that was kind of like a big shot in the environmental business. And for some reason, she just didn't like me. I think that maybe her husband left me for somebody that looked like me or something. I so wanted to hang out with her, but she did not like me. And then she found out that I had a program called Money and You. And then she just walked up to me. I was in my booth doing something, and she just kind of like did this whole thing about me and using people and doing all these things. And I had this thing called Money and You and blah, blah, blah. And all you care about is money, blah, blah. She did this whole blah, blah, blah. And then the person that was standing next to me just kind of looked at me and said, "Oh, that's really interesting." And they walked away and they go, "Obviously they don't know you." I said, "I have no idea. I hardly know her." But for whatever reason, she had just projected all of that. And I wasn't shook up at all. I didn't connect to any of it because none of it was true. But the truth is that if somebody had done that 20 years earlier, when I had not done as much clearing as I now have, I probably would have gone, "Ooh, maybe I am that bad," or whatever. So whenever you hook in to a judgment that people give you and you hook into it, it's clearing time. It's time for you to do the recovery magical exercises. And my most negative thought about myself, my biggest fear about people judging me. So every once in a while, I will get plugged in about certain things, but they're not judgments that others have of myself. So leverage, when somebody says those words that either you're manipulative and the rich, whatever, that sounds like somebody that may not have as much money as they should. And I'm not saying that they do, but that's what it sounds like a little bit. And they are speaking their judgments about money. Just notice, just give yourself the assignment for the next week to go around and seeing people, what are they saying about money? Engage your family for the next holiday. 4th of July is coming. It's a really good time. And just get them involved in a money conversation. I don't even want to tell you about my family. It's so fun. Go ahead, Rex.
No, I was going to say you're so spot on, and people can become aware and they can listen without making it about them or about judging the other people. You know, I'm very often talking about the Wright Brothers, you know, and their attempts to fly a plane, and their own father said, "You guys are idiots. Give it a rest. You know, everybody thinks you're nuts. You're never going to fly. You know, this is stupid." So, I mean, and oftentimes, our families, though they love us, may be the most critical of us or the least supportive of us because they want us to have a fallback plan or they want us to do the right thing according to their rules or something like that. So, but people are making judgments about each and every person, about what is possible, what isn't possible, what you could do, what you can't do. And they try and oftentimes fit people into, their mold. And we need to be aware, like the Wright brothers were, that, we're going to fly and thank you very much, Pops, but we're going to keep going and not let that dissuade you from going further. Let me do a little housekeeping.
Hold on. Oh, yes. I just wanted to very quickly, because I want to talk about you for 1 second before housekeeping. So I just wanted to say one thing. That's a good time to say thank you for sharing. And the other one, can you please share with us about your own programs? Because I was telling my best friend about the distinction that I got about that there's no such thing as self-sabotage and all that. I'm actually sending him your book. Can you just talk because you're so good. And I'm going to share this with my network. So can you tell us about your work before we go anywhere?
Well, thank you. Well, as I was talking about about the Wright brothers didn't know how to fly until after they flew. And the time before they were trying to fly, they were experimenting and they were getting feedback and they were making adjustments and they were making corrections. And then they would attempt it again and it either worked or it didn't work. So what that tells us is a lot of people think they need to know how to do something before they actually do it. And the answer is you don't. You don't know how to do it until you've done it. And then you can look back and connect the dots and do it. And so what I've done for the past 40 years, as you have, is help people, manage their mindset. Because when you're thinking positively and powerfully and you frame things in a way that works for you, then what happens is you also feel better. And when you feel better, you behave better, you speak better, and you start getting the results that you truly deserve to get, that you're meant to get, that you can get. As Henry Ford said, he said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you are absolutely correct. But he said something else truly important, and that was, I never let what I can't do interfere with what I can do. And too many people stop themselves from doing what they could do because they don't yet think it's possible, because they can't figure out how to do it yet. And what I'm here to tell them is you don't have to know how to do it yet. What you need to do is just take baby steps and start making little bits of change that help you manage your mindset, that transform your being so that you become the kind of person who does what you need to do in order to have what you want to have. And that is so easy and so powerful and so available to all of us. And yet many people think it's hard. They have these myths that I go in and I break up constantly about, the law of attraction or the notion of self-sabotage. Your brain doesn't sabotage you ever. Your brain only does what your brain learned to do. And then you go, I don't like what you're doing. And we call it self-sabotage. But by calling it self-sabotage, it's just like calling it BROKE. What you say about yourself and what you say about your abilities and what you say about what you're going to do or where you've come from is truly, truly important. We need to learn how to change that and manage that so we can transform it and be the person who we were born to be. When I came into my power, and I'll stop here, but when I came into my true power, I was about 25 and I went, you know what? I own this planet. And people would look at me like I say, I own Los Angeles. And they go, whoa, that's so egotistical. I go, no. I've got lots of co-owners. And it doesn't mean that I traipse through other people's backyards because I own it. It means that my attitude is I belong here. I belong on this planet. This is my place. I'm here for this time. So I'm a steward of it. I'm a caretaker of it. I am here because the universe deemed it right for me to be here at this time. And that's where we all come to be. And when we come into this, then we understand that we are truly wealthy. We're truly deserving. Everything that we want can be ours. But it's not just about wanting, it's about becoming that person for whom having is easy. And with that, I'm Rex. And I am complete, as we say.
I'm sorry. Now go ahead and do housekeeping. But your book again?
Geez, you're my guest and you're telling me my book is Life on Your Terms. And I will say this. You can get this book from Amazon, but if you go to my website, which is rexsikes.com, I'll do this right now. I'm giving a bonus training, a $497 training When you purchase the book, you get the training, but you got to go to my website and follow the instructions, put the receipt from Amazon into a thing, and you get access to the training. But it's on mastery. It's on learning how to master anything, whether it's mastering your finances or mastering your mindset or mastering how to cook. It's about how we go from learning to actually getting good at things. And so I want to give that to people who read my book as a bonus to help them with the material in my book. And the book is very simple in terms of
I love it.
Practices. So the housekeeping question that I was going to say is, we are at that point when the show is technically to end, but I would like to know if you can stay a little bit longer.
Sure.
And but I want to be sensitive to your time. So when you need to go, I want to release you to be able to do
We'll
it.
take another 20 minutes. I can stay another 20 minutes, and then I'll have to go and get ready for my next big meeting.
There you go. All right. So we have 20 minutes. So if any other people have questions, we can do that. But Doria, this is so incredibly valuable. What is the role of being fiscally or financially responsible? You know, as I just said, a steward on the planet. You are known for your philanthropic work. Do you believe that you get back by giving? And if so, how so? Because you are known as a very generous giver. You give so many things, and you have helped so many people. I mean, you're knighted for that. So I mean, you know, what is the basis? You know, Emerson had the law of compensation and things like this, and Buckminster Fuller had some comments on why we need to give and how should we give. You know, especially when we don't have a lot, we're temporarily out of cash.
Yes.
Do we still give?
Okay, so let me just, if needed, just remember that question, because I'm going to backtrack just for a minute. So what we teach in all of our programs and what has been guiding me since I met Buckminster Fuller are generalized principles. Generalized principles are things that can be proven by physics, literally by physics. So a generalized principle is gravity. Gravity, you know, you're going to fall. You're going to go towards Earth. Another one is leverage, we already spoke about. And another one is called precession, which is literally the physics of ripple effects. It's actually a physics principle that is taught in academies and in universities. And we have had people that have come to the Money and You program that are physicists and have never ever seen precession explained the way we explain it. And they find it quite adorable, but accurate, because we learned it from Buckminster Fuller. So whenever we take an action, whenever we are going forward, just taking action, and the more focused the action, we always create a 90-degree effect. Even when we're physically moving, there's air that is being pushed. There's actually air. There's action that's, you may not see it, but it's actually happening. So what happens is that when you keep taking action and you keep moving in a certain direction, there's going to be effects. There's going to be ripple effects that are going to occur. So to start to answer your question, and just remember that thought, everyone, I come from a family of generous people. You've heard it before. My grandfather, literally in Chile in the 40s, picked up 2 children off the street that became my cousins. We knew the story, but when you're little, they were my little brothers and sisters that I play with, but they called them our cousins because they had been picked off the street, but we didn't care, and they were treated as their children, and we loved them. So I learned from the time I was this big that you could pick children off the streets and feed them if needed. I have the most generous auntie. She passed away already. She was almost 100. And this woman used to hire like 13, a family of a couple with 11 children. So there were 13 of them to take care of the house. And of course, she sent the kids to school, and they were my little friends that I played with during the summer. I didn't care either. You don't know when you're a child, you just got children to play with. And I loved it. There were 11 children that I could play with I loved it because I was an only child. So I was raised by generosity. My mother is unbelievable. She still is the most beautiful person. We had a bakery in East LA in the 70s, and I always went in the afternoon and evening. And one morning I went early in the morning to do something, and I had keys to the bakery. And I opened up the back, and in the back there were all these people, all these men sleeping everywhere, and they had pillows and they had little blankets. And my mother used to let all these migrant workers sleep in the back of the bakery where it was really warm in the winter, and would provide them with pillows and blankets, and they all used the one bathroom there. And I was kind of shocked, and then I go, "Ay, perdón," you know, I didn't know who they were. So I kind of ran through to the front area of the bakery. And I said, "Mama, what is all this?" She goes, "I can't let them sleep in the street. It's nice and warm there." And it was like my heart, I just went, holy, you know, this woman is like, one minute she's completely crazy, and the next moment she's like Mother Teresa, except I didn't know Mother Teresa then, but whatever I called her at the time. And so I grew up with that. So for me, it is just a way of life, and you want to teach your children to do that. And I have a whole bunch of other stories about growing up in Chile and trying to adopt a child off the street and all this and that. So it kind of is in my DNA. But what I notice is that when we just give naturally, and then we create economic engines, this is really important. We create economic engines, and we also have successful businesses, that giving and being philanthropic just becomes part of your business, that you will always be taking care of someone. You will always be taking care of something. Like right now, I'm very involved every morning, and trust me, I'm not a morning person, me and Mo, right? You know, I getting up every day, and it's still going on tomorrow with our friend Mark Siegel, a whole summit in Clubhouse for, you know, human trafficking. I have learned so much, and I'm just there, and I've changed some appointments and things so I can just be there to support and to give and to help and whatever I can, because that is something that touches my heart. But what is so interesting is because I am focused and I have an economic engine, then all this money comes in from all kinds of different places. I even got a check from the state of California today, a refund for some extra taxes that I pay. And trust me, I have a great CPA. We don't pay extra taxes. We pay all our taxes, but you know. And so I'm trained, and you have to train yourself. And every time you receive something financially, you kind of make it up if you need to. Oh, I'm being paid for doing that good. It's like, so maybe your actions are in this direction, but the results are 90 degrees. So it's a generalized principle that the more benevolent, the more loving, it's like it is just the way that the world works. So Buckminster Fuller used to say, would you like to have a direct line to the Great Spirit? So you could call the Great Spirit every morning and say, Great Spirit. He actually used to talk like that. He actually shared this exact story. He says, Great Spirit, how am I doing today? And the Great Spirit answers this way. Look around. This was Buckminster Fuller's wording. Look around and see everything wonderful that's happening in your life. You're probably in the right track, in the right focus, but you don't have enough money. Your relationship sucks. You're sick. You have all kinds of negative things around you. You need to stop and take a look at your actions. You need to take a look at your business. You need to take a look at your personal relationships. In other words, you have to do an integrity checklist and take a look and see if the things that you're doing are actually beneficial to answer the question. Because this is the question. How do we make the world work for 100% of humanity? Through spontaneous cooperation in the shortest possible time, without any ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. So I'm a good girl, not because I want to be a good girl, because there's a part of me when I was much younger, I didn't want to be a good girl all the time. But I learned very young that if you hurt another, the consequences were going to be 10 times bigger. I don't know whether you call it karma. Some people don't believe in karma, but I think that it is what you attract to yourself. So this is, I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but this is such an important point for people to understand that you give because your heart calls you to give. And some of you need to practice a little because you're just being takers. And, you know, and your life shows that, because I know this, because I have helped a lot of people moving from being takers into being balanced givers and receivers, because that is actually a cycle. So that was a long answer.
It was a great answer. And one of the things that I had to learn to do in my life was to become a good receiver. You know,
Yes.
giving, I could give to my family or to my kids or to people, or I'd give money to the homeless or something like that. But when somebody would give something to me, even a compliment, or somebody goes, let me buy your coffee, or I'll get dinner this time, I was like, no. I got it. And to learn how to receive as well as to give, you know, is I think just as important, because, I mean, I would agree with you, because I think that's how the flow, the exchange goes. And if I block it some way, then I interrupt my giving if I can't receive as well. Yes.
That's deservability.
Exactly.
Deservability. That is you feeling undeserving for whatever. It could be so unconscious, Rex. It could have been a statement that your mother or father made when you were a little tiny thing and you took something that you weren't supposed to. And what do you think you're doing? You don't deserve that, or whatever. It could have been this passing statement, and it just went right in. And that's why the recovery magical exercises, they're called recovery because it was during COVID, right? And we were in the process of recovering. It was at the start of COVID. We thought it was going to last 2 months, right? But anyway, so you have to understand that aspect is deservability. And you and everyone that I know has to work on their deservability. Even some of the most wealthy people, because some of the wealthy people have everything, but they don't have love. They don't have love.
I sat in a very, 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 very famous, very wealthy home not many years ago. My daughter was about 2 years old, and he said, I have all of this. I didn't think I would have it. I just kind of, made this happen. But then I'm me, and I don't like me. And I mean, that at that time, at that moment, for him to unburden himself and to say, I got it all, except I don't have my own self-worth. I don't have self-love. I don't have the things that I really need. So this is really meaningless to me. It doesn't fulfill me in any way. And he, and I'm happy to say he has transformed. But at the time, he was just very, very upset and very, dismayed with what was going on. We only have a few minutes left for you. I mean, we've got about 6 minutes, but there was another question that is asked, and I'd like to be able to ask that for you. What a beautiful answer, Doria. I really do appreciate all of these. Before we pass on, you just mentioned the exercises. Before we move on, you just mentioned the exercises. Would you again say where they can get those?
Those are free. It's at fridayswithdoria.com, and there's tabs in the top. And then there is a tab that says resources. And I think it's second or third, and it says recovery magical exercises. And I did those last April, and it looks like it's 3.5 hours long. Don't worry about it. They're only 45 minutes. The reason they're so long is that everybody was staying behind and checking theirs, and we were all talking back and forth. And it was at the beginning of COVID. That was done like mid-April or at the end of April, and everybody was freaked out because their businesses had stopped. By that time, I don't want to tell you how much my income, which is passive income, is royalties, and they all stopped in March. And it was like, I just took a deep breath, because I actually did not know. We didn't know I frankly didn't know whether we were going to have half the world died of this thing. I mean, I just thought, okay, we are in a pandemic. I don't think it's a really good time to be worrying about money. I have enough. I'm going to handle it. And this is why you also want to have low debt. You want to have low debt. And by the way, remember we were all talking about cash one day in the One Percenters Only room? I don't know if you remember, we were talking about carrying cash, and Mo was talking about, we all got into a conversation. Well, I had a little incident on Monday at the San Diego airport that I panicked a little bit for just a couple of minutes. And it was so interesting because I took stock of the situation. It looked like I was going to be stuck in the airport for the night. And I just said, okay, let me just take a deep breath. And then I came up with the whole plan. And then I thought, oh, well, I also have plenty of cash on me. I'll just pull over a car with a family, lots of kids in the car, and offer them $100 to drive me over the hill where my home is in Ocean Beach. And it was like, at that point, I was so happy that I had that kind of cash on me that I could just stop a car with $100 bill and have them drive me home, because it looked like I was going to have to be stuck there because of what was happening at the airport. So you need to understand that being prepared, and that is what I was doing with my network, and that with the magical exercises, I was getting them all back to how they were all activated to lack, to scarcity, to no money, to what was going to happen. And I have a lot of people that kept doing them because it got worse. That was at the middle of April. By May, June, July, we're talking, my network is all over the world. And so I wake up sometimes feeling tremendous scarcity. And I think it's because I'm very centric. I feel a lot. And then I literally go, okay, my most negative thought about money is, what am I feeling right now? Okay. And then I begin to make a list of all the things where I can, if everything, the worst happened, what are all the things that I have access to, all of my assets. And remember, those are lists you want to make, all the things you have access to, all the people, all the networks and all that, all the assets that you have, all the assets in your house that you could trade or sell. And then, of course, the last list is everything you're not good at, because when you are coming out of certain situations, you do not want to be focused on things that you're not good at. You want to focus on what you're really good at.
Well, and what you just exemplify is the ability to shift from a less than resourceful state into a resourceful state, because when we don't operate well when we're less resourceful. And so when you gather your resources and you can say, hey, I have access to this and this, I have these resources in me and these resources around me, you find opportunity, and you can plan, and you can overcome any difficulty or limitation far easier than you can if you're wallowing in lack of resourcefulness. So this is awesome, and I really appreciate it. The question that was asked, it was, Doria, what advice do you have for people who fall back into their old programming of scarcity, which is kind of what you just addressed, but.
Well, actually, that's actually a question for you, Rex, and in many ways, but for me, it's literally to change my state. I literally I literally start bouncing up and down, doing Qigong. I mean, literally, I start moving. This is what Tony Robbins learned so well from NLP, right? Changing your state immediately. Gratitude. I actually go into gratitude. I start looking around. Oh, look at the beautiful computer that I have. Look at those beautiful lights that I have. Oh, look at this beautiful ring. Thank you, God. The desk. Oh my God, ocean front. I just began, and within minutes, gratitude is one of the greatest drugs on the planet. Remember, I'm a girl from the 70s, and I haven't drank since 1988. And I was a party girl, so I know what it is like to be sober and not to be sober. But I have to tell you that gratitude is one of the greatest drugs on planet Earth, because it immediately begins to change your state. But this is what you are a master at, right? What would you answer? What would you say?
I would answer very much what you are answering. I absolutely. People don't realize that energy flows where your attention goes. And so if your attention goes to the problem, that's where your energy is going to go. And if your attention goes elsewhere, anywhere else, it can be liberating. So to jump up and down, to get into gratitude, to notice what's around you, to take your attention from what is the problem or the presenting problem state and to put it outside of yourself or into your own inner resources, or to move your body in a particular way, to focus on what's good in your life and what's gratitude. There's so many ways to change your state, and it's so simple, and it's so simple and so easy and so right there in front of us that most of us never do it. Most people will sit and wallow and complain and blame and make excuses instead of doing something very simple to change their state, because they don't realize the power that they have within them to do that. And so your job, my job, is helping people to awaken and to be aware that at any moment, and Tony and everybody else, is to be aware that you can be, do, and have whatever you want. And it's really, truly simple. And we both teach principles. And we both know that if you take enough baby steps in the right direction, it can take you all the way up to the peak top of Everest. So it's just that consistent, correct, constant, right action that gets us there. It doesn't have to be massive action. That's another one of those misnomers, like self-sabotage. Massive action is good sometimes. Like when your car is stuck, you need massive action sometimes to get it out, or you need to call a tow truck because you can't lift it out of the mud. But you don't need massive action to have your coffee in the morning. You don't need massive action to be happy. What you need is some simple, consistent, profound happiness, tiny little habits that you do every day that make you feel better, and that awareness that you just described. That I'm not.
Also, you can go and be around very unhappy people. You can actually, what I do is I have some friends that are very successful, and they're sad. They are bankrupt emotionally, and I send them to hospitals. I send people, something I learned when my best friend's husband was dying. I found that I would go to Costco's and get a bunch of chocolates, the little package chocolates. And I would go to the ICU because those families were devastated. We were in the ICU waiting for our friend to wake up, which thank God he woke up, 3 days later, but he actually did die, and 4 months later. But what I noticed was that I would take chocolate and give it to all these families. And then one little tiny bit of chocolate from a total stranger. And it was like, thank you. Like it would almost change their state. And I remember one time this poor mother, oh my God, I was like plugged into my boyfriend that died, she reminded me of that. And they did have a young man in there. And I remember this mother, and I said, venga, párese un poquito, venga, caminamos un poquito. Let's go walk a little bit. Like I took her out. She was so miserable. Her little boy was, in the ICU. And I took her for a little walk. I said, caminamos, vamos a caminar. And I took her for a walk. And by the time she came back, her state was already changed. So I tell people, go to the ICU, go to old people's homes, literally walk in and say, is there somebody who doesn't have any relatives here that I should talk to them? Make friends with them, go in once a week, read to them, make them laugh, watch a show with them, spend 2-3 hours with a lonely person that has no one in a senior home. And trust me when I tell you, when you walk out of there, you're going to be kissing the ground with gratitude. And that is very, very simple. And I just want to start wrapping up by saying, I'm a very simple person. Most people, all my friends know this, and my beloved knows this. I'm a very simple person. I'm very happy with very simple things. Of course, living on Maui and living in San Diego, right on the ocean, probably some people would not think that is that simple. But I have had this place since 1989. I was not wealthy when I got this place. I was in the process, but I had just, So what you have to understand is that simplicity is key, and getting really in touch with what it is that you really, really, really love. So I have not traded my freedom for money. So a lot of my friends know that by now I could have been a billionaire by running this huge organization because I'm a super manager, super CEO. I didn't want that. I love time off. I love to be able to come and go. I don't have $100,000 million, masterminds with people that I have to be on the phone with them all day. I can change my schedule like that, and I do, and drop it like a hot potato. I have been like that my whole adult life. That's because my value, number one value, is freedom. So be clear on what it is that you value. And if freedom is what you value, do not get yourself into situations that are going to take your freedom away. So it's very simple. Just start saying that I'm a very simple person. I'm not that complicated. What is it that me, my beloved, my family, what is it that my family needs? And then you work around that, and your level of happiness is going to go through the roof.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And now I know why we're twins and why Mo Rock is so important to all of us. We each share the same highest core value of freedom. It truly, truly. But what you said also is absolutely important. You want to feel better? Go help someone else feel better, and you will feel better. Don't do it necessarily just to feel better. Do it to actually help. But when you do, it's amazing. And the ancients have known this for thousands of years, and this is the wisdom that is so often lost and not being taught in our schools or our educational systems or in many places. But you teach it, you share it, you embody it, and you make it available to other people. And I am so appreciative of that, and I so value our friendship. And together we are free. And I really, really love that.
Yes, and you actually, what I was going to say, for people ask all the time, where can I continue to learn? Actually, you can go to dccordova.com and pick up all the places that I'm in. I'm all over social media. And if you wonder, like if you go to my Facebook, you will see a lot of different podcasts and things that I'm involved in. And I am in what is called legacy period. I am now starting to leave my legacy. It's going to take me a few years. And then I'm moving more and more. I'm finally setting up a foundation. I'm moving into a whole other level of training and different things. So don't try to emulate me, because I am old enough to be many of you, your grandmother. But what you want to do is you want to take a look at all the different stages, learn from people like myself and like Rex, because we have a lot of wisdom and we've gone through a lot and we can share with you. But you also need to learn from the Mo's, learn from the J's and the Linas and the Scotts, learn, and Ori Espato. I mean, I got his book too. And I was reading, his book is like a novel, right? It's like, I love reading about it. And so what you have to do is you have to just become aware and come home to you. Come home. Just land in your body. And so many of us, I remember when I was really young, I was all over the place. And I remember Sandra Ray and other teachers just going, come home. I went to ashrams and spent 6 weeks, just very quiet and chanting and doing all this work, because I needed to come home. And many of you, that's what you need to do. And then from there, you create beautiful businesses. And always think of being of service first, and the wealth will follow. And but you have to have an economic engine. So go download moneyandyou.com, go download my book, send it to your friends and all this and that. And yes, you do go into my system, but people can opt out anytime. Wealth-wise, I'm already handled, but I love to also create more wealth. It just depends on what it is that I feel like doing. And you might hear from me and just go, I'm sorry, you guys, you're not going to hear from me. I don't know when. I'm going to Maui. I'm just going to turn everything off. And who knows? I may or may not do that, but it doesn't matter. See, just learn from us to follow your own guidance, your own heart, and always, always figure out how to solve problems for others. We have a lot of problems in the world. Be generous, be generous. And tomorrow, I hope that you are I want to send all of you to go and listen. It's hard to listen about all this human trafficking and all this and that, but our beautiful Mark Siegel, you can see it in my clubhouse. Follow me there. You will see my little picture with, make the world aware or something. Just go to my Facebook and you'll see it. Every day I have the link for the next day. Oh, I have to go put it for tomorrow. But anyway, so just, if you need to learn where to go, follow me for a little while until you grow your own wings and you're flying on your own. So that's it. Anything else that you can share?
Oh, that is truly, it's truly beautiful and absolutely fabulous. And I hope that the powers that be will put all of your website information into the chat. So, because somebody asked about that earlier, but we'll also have it available in the descriptions where this show is replayed. And if you put it up on the screen, there you go. There's fridayswithdoria.com. For the magical exercise. If you continue with that would be fantastic. Then when anybody gets the repeat, they will also have that available there. Doria, this has been, you have gone actually past what you promised.
Okay.
You've gone an extra 10 minutes, and I really do appreciate it. And everything has been golden. And you mentioned so many of our friends and the one percenters, and people should know that they can find the one percenters only on Facebook. There's a fan page they could go and that will help give them access to other people in terms of cash and in terms of resources. And so that's a very valuable resource. And Ori Spado was my guest last time. No, that's the second show. He was my guest. Last time I had Alex Flynn, who runs marathons all around the world, in order to raise money for Parkinson's. And his goal is to summit Mount Everest next year. And so this year he's going to be climbing 3 different mountains in order to get ready for his advance on Mount Everest. Just totally amazing. My first guest was Michael Warrington, quadriplegic since 22, became a financial advisor, travels the world helping people and benefiting people in all ways. And I work with a particular individual who goes into countries and helps get people out of the trafficking situations. And I think the three of us, or I can connect you up with this person as well in the near future. But truly blessed time with you here today. We'll have to do it again and again and again. But go to her website, go to Doria's website, check it out. Be at Fridays with Doria tomorrow. And if you can't make it tomorrow, make it the next Friday, because this is an ongoing thing with Doria. And I'm really so much love, so much value, and so much goodness. And the world is a far better place because you're in it. We're very grateful. Thank you. So,
thank you, my little twinsy. Look at that. I know I have twins out there, and every once in a while I think, where are they? And, and I lost one of my best friends last week, and my heart is still broken. I still cry spontaneously. Us human beings, just allow it to flow. I sometimes just sit there and I look at my garden of angels. I created a garden of angels for all my friends that have left this world for the last 7 years or something. So it's growing. And I just spontaneously start crying. And then there was a part of me that was judging me the other day, like, stop crying, like literally my own voice. And I go, no, crying is good. I'm going to sit here and cry as long as I want. That was my best friend, and I am going to cry if I want to. And it was so interesting because it was like a little girl. And then I just cried, and then I got through it. So I have a teacher named, her name is Esperanza Universal, and she used to say, all feelings are equal. So when you're feeling sad, go into them. Just really get sad, and then you'll come out the other side very quickly. So I hope all of this was helpful. We'll see you all. We'll meet again at the One Percenters Only. We're going to have a room soon, I hear, and come and hang out with me everywhere. Aloha.
Aloha. So good to have you. Thank you so much, Doria. Peace, blessings, much love. We'll be talking really later, but soon, and tomorrow, and all over. You are awesome and a true gift to the planet. Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha. Wow, is she not amazing? Is that not valuable? I hope that you will watch this over and over again. I hope you'll hit the like buttons. I hope you'll subscribe to the show. I hope you leave additional comments if you're watching this in a replay, and that you share it, with your friends, your family, and even strangers, in whatever social media you can. And I ask that you do that with all of my guests, because each and every single one of my guests is bringing value to us, myself, the watcher, the viewers. And I thank Mo Rock and Dr. Natalie Forrest and the Los Angeles Tribune for having this platform for me to have a show like this. It's truly, truly wonderful, and I certainly appreciate it. And I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad for all the people who've commented and who watched live and who've been with us. It's also, as I said, the One Percenters Only is a fan page on Facebook, and many of us, Doria including, Ori Spado and others, have been teaching a private session with Jay Nolan and Lena and other people in the One Percenters VIP, a private room. And so, if that interests you, you should go to the One Percenters and check that out. Mo and I and Jay are actually doing a training, and that's coming up in August. And so people are enrolling right now, and I want to invite you to be able to do that. You have to enroll through Jay Nolan. I don't have that information available at this moment, but just so that you know that is another possibility. And certainly, you absolutely want to do money, and if you can be there. She said 50% of the class was filled. So if you have the opportunity to go and do that program with Doria, I heartily recommend that you do that. Get the exercises from her and be there and the Fridays with Doria, period. Okay, so I also want to tell you about my next guest, show number 5. Former student of mine. He's an NLP trainer. He's a marketing guru and an entrepreneur. His name is Joe Soto. And he's applied what he learned from me and from others and has been transforming lives and the marketing, been helping people market their businesses for many, many years now. He's going to be my next guest. You're going to want to watch him. He'll be giving you tips and suggestions about what you can do, what you need to know to take yourself to the next level. And he's one of those resources, one of those assets that I'm happy to introduce you to through All Things Rex. All right, so that's show number 5, next Thursday. We stream live and record every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Central time, and 6 p.m. Eastern time. Now, I want to also say something, and I take this as a high compliment. I have been named a rhino from the rhino himself, Scott Harris, while we were doing this show. You have no idea how much that actually means to me. But thank you so much. And thank you. So thank you, everyone, for watching. My book, again, is Life on Your Terms. You can get it at rexsikes.com. You actually go there. It'll give you a link to Amazon where you purchase the book. And I'm providing you with a bonus training, a $497 training on mastery, so that it will accompany the book. And the book is very simple, very easy to read, and has lots of practices and principles that can help transform your life when you apply them. So I'm very glad you're here. My favorite thing to say and to tell you is make all your moments magical, memorable, and miraculous, because you can. And when you consider everything a blessing, it is a blessing. So celebrate everything. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Until we meet the next time, celebrate everything.